Hello and welcome to another episode of Off the Ruck, your weekly rugby breakdown with me, John Ferguson. Today, Lockie, I've got you back from the Scrumbags pod to review of what is going to be the first Bledisloe of 2025. I cannot wait. It is honestly like a dream come true every year, and I'm not quite sure whether it will come true or not, but it does. Every year comes through, and this year we get another shot at the Eden Park Hoodoo. How psyched are you for this weekend?
Oh, very excited. It's like, Dad left for milk in 2002 and we're waiting to see if he comes back this year. I'm excited. I'm hopeful. I always get a bit tetchy around Bledisloe 1. You never want to, get the early crow out, and certainly we haven't had much reason to. But geez, I'm excited. How can you not be with the way that TRC has gone this year, with the forms and the storylines of both Joe Schmidt's Wallabies and Razor's All Blacks? It's set up to be one hell of a game this weekend.
It absolutely is. We're going to get into all of the Bledisloe. We're going to get into the RGs v Springboks, and we are also going to briefly touch on the Women's World Cup final between England and Canada. But before we get there, we are going to do a rapid fire news segment here because there has been a lot that's been happening, particularly in the world of Australian rugby from all around the world. So I think we just have to get into it to begin with. And also, before we get into that, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel here and also Scrumbags on all your platforms. And you'll find all their best work on their pod platforms where you like to listen to your podcasts. So make sure you go out and follow them there. So let's get into the news segment. Okay, rapid fire coming at you today, Lockie. We're going to start off with the one and only Mark Nawaqanitawase saying that he's going to be leaving the Roosters and he's coming back to rugby, not necessarily RA. What is your first takes on this thing? Because it is big, big news. It really is.
Yeah, fantastic news for Union. I think it hurts League more than it uplifts Union. To be honest, he's had such a profound impact on the 2025 13-man season, and leading try scorer for the Roosters, had some of the most impressive single games and moments within those games. And it's nothing that we were surprised by, but it took the league world by storm. So they get another year of him before he comes back to 15-man rugby. You're perfectly right, though. Where he ends up is a mystery. But what we do know is that he wants to play in a home World Cup. I think he wants to play in a Wallabies jersey. All indications point to that, despite his Italian and Fijian eligibility. And what a boost that would be to have a genuine Australian sports superstar, which he is now, coming back into the fold for 27. Do you see there being that appetite to get him back in?
Yeah, absolutely. There's appetite. There is no question that he has an absolute lethal attacking ability, the highest try scorer in the NRL, from what a lot of people are calling his rookie season, although he did, debut last season technically. So there were people getting a little bit on and off him about whether he was going to be able to win that medal. But in the end, everything was corrected and righted. But I just want to touch on one aspect of this, and that it is absolute ludicrousy for anyone to suggest that he would play for Fiji or Italy in this World Cup. He says it's a home World Cup. He's Australian. To the rest of the world, a World Cup is amazing. It happens only every 4 years, but a home World Cup, that happens only once every 2 generations or so in your own home country of birth. So the idea that somehow RA have to spend big to have him back, if Mark wants to leave rugby league to play for Fiji or Italy, which are both not the biggest nations in rugby, like financially wise, it would just be it would be a bizarre move from him. And that's nothing against the national teams that are Italy and Fiji. It's more about his option taking, where he could play for the Wallabies at the home World Cup in Australia. So I think that needs to be surely put to bed. And any fear mongering about that is pretty darn ludicrous from my perspective. I've been waiting to say it on somewhere because I haven't been written a column yet this week, but I will be having one out tomorrow on Rugby Pass. That's not what it's going to be about, but just had to say that because it's irked me that people have felt that that's some sort of legitimate angle. Sure, possibilities are possibilities. Carlo Tizzano could not play and then go and play for Italy when he wants to. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, but it's not a feasible carrot to draw him out of the Roosters where he's been going gun ho. I don't know if you want to add to that, but that I just had to get that piece out.
No, it's an interesting storyline, and international eligibility always is, but it's no question in my mind that he wants to wear the 11 or the 14 come a Wallabies World Cup opener in front of tens, hundreds of thousands of fans all spilling around for 2027. He is a freak athlete. We knew that when he headed over. He's been able to show it in two codes. And I personally believe that for Australia to win a World Cup and star and capture a nation, having Mark Nawaqanitawase back in the frame is a key component of that. So I hope to see him back in Wallaby Gold come 2027, although I, at the moment, don't think he'll come through a Super Rugby pathway, put it that way.
Yeah, no, nor do I. And nor do I think that that Rugby Australia should foot the bill should Mark Nawaqanitawase not want to commit long term back to rugby union. Do you think, quickly to wrap this up, do you think that if he comes for 1 year, being, the calendar year to 2027, and then go back to league, do you reckon that does more, that hurts union more than it does him leaving league now? Or is it just kind of like, has he already given that profile to union in the World Cup at home here in Australia? Any damage that him leaving doesn't necessarily leave a big gulf behind, or a big rift behind him.
I don't think so. I think Australia, despite Nawaqanitawase's talents, is flush with outside backs at the moment. He offers something that we don't currently have, which is a genuine height and aerial threat that isn't currently used in the 13 jersey. But look, it's an exciting prospect to have him back. We have no idea of a length of deal. We haven't even got confirmation. All we have is a source reported by Sydney Morning Herald that he has indicated to the Roosters that he wants to leave. So it's pie in the sky stuff at the moment. But you're right. I don't think RO would be footing the bill, certainly not for a short-term deal. And we'll just have to see how it plays out over the next 12 months.
Yeah, we will wait and watch and hope for Aussie and Wallaby fans' sake, as well as the world of rugby, because he's a great entertainer, scoring 24 tries across the regular season for the NRL. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with another league union convert, which is Carter Gordon. I want to get your take on this. There are rumors circulating that RA are going after him and they want to secure some sort of early release potentially from his contract at the Gold Coast Titans in the NRL, which then takes him through to 2020, end of 2026. He could still technically go on the end of year tour next year, but if they could get an early release from him, potentially back to Queensland, which is where he wanted to be before he left the rugby union, where he was with the now folded and defunct Melbourne Rebels. So how do you feel about this? Because for me personally, it feels a bit bizarre to be able to be chasing someone who's played very little footy in the last year. Physically, not saying that he's not great physically, because we saw what he did there, but it takes a while to come back from an injury where you really are very, very heavily dilapidated, as he was with the spinal fluid injury. So how's your take on it? Because I'm not saying that it's not a good asset to have. We are struggling with tens, but there needs to be succession planning. There needs to be a longer term plan, and trying to fork out, a big check for him at this point feels like kind of like the incorrect move to be able to do for RA at the moment.
The Carter Gordon perceived hunt, or what we've seen from media types, Chrissy Doran's reporting at the Raw, Michael Atkinson wrote a column on September 25, today as we record on a Thursday, about getting Carter back. Yeah, there are veteran journos and reporters pushing for this, or at least saying that it's on the cards. I am taking a bit more of a measured view and would ask, where are you putting him club-wise? So look at Queensland, and they already have Harry Phillips and Tom Liner. Tom Liner considered an incumbent there. The Brumbies now have Tane Edmed. The Waratahs are really backing Jack Bowen at the moment, but there could be a spot down there. And of course, it's Ben Donaldson's to lose over at the fourth with Max Bury. So there needs to be a plan for where he goes and for how long and why. Just saying we want Carter back and we can't win without him is damaging to the brand of tens that we have, regardless whether you think they're up to it or not. It's not helpful to go spouting off that they can't do it. We need to get this bloke back from league who hasn't played any league because his spine's leaking. You're right. It's not very good preparation. We haven't seen him excel over in that code. And frankly, while he had good moments in the Rebels jersey, he was put under supreme pressure through the 2023 season and tanked in a Wallabies jersey. So it's not exactly like we're getting a known quantity back to come and save us all. This isn't Richie Mo'unga. This is a vastly different proposition. So I'd sort of ease up on the we must have this player back. And instead, those advocating for his return need to propose a reasonable path for him to return and do so. What club's he at? What's best for his development? Where does he fit into a Wallabies team that seems at the moment to be built around a likely Tom Liner succession plan?
Yeah, it's very true. Wait and watch this space to see how this story, if it does indeed unfold. Now going on to more players abroad in the game of rugby union. Will Skelton reported this week to be coming back via the French publication L'Equipe to be coming back for the Bledisloe 2 in Perth next week. Uh, I was so buoyed by this, and I did put out on X in saying, in jest, don't you think this storm that's hit the southern part of France could be the gods saying, will Skelton return to the Wallabies? And lo and behold, an hour later, I found an article that was pointed out to me by a punter who follows me on X. That Will Skelton was indeed coming back to Australia for the conclusion of the Rugby Championship. Super exciting stuff. There's been debate about on stand shows, and whether you get him back for one, Bledisloe 1, Bledisloe 2. There's an issue clearly here, and I think I just want to say that there is a contract and there are regulations that are made. There are contract between player and club, and then there are world regulations that dictate how players are supposed to be made available for international test windows, which the whole of the rugby championships sit inside of. But there is also a moral contract between the player and their coach, and kind of what you've imbued in that contract when you signed it. So at the time when Will Skelton signed with La Rochelle, he probably wasn't thinking that he'd be a lock and loaded player in Joe Schmidt's outfit for the Wallabies, because he hadn't been so under the prior coaches necessarily. And so really, really exciting now that he's become such a big part. And Ronan O'Gara, the coach of La Rochelle, his club in the French Club 14, has been magnanimous enough to let him go to almost all the matches. But I just feel, again, it's not a perfect science. And I'm not calling for an international window. I'm just saying that people who have already signed contracts before shifts in RA just need to understand that they need to be amenable to changes and flexibility. And that's what we're seeing here with Will Skelton.
Yeah, the Skelton case is interesting. I think all Australian fans would have loved him to be available for both Bledisloes. It's simple as that. And what kind of preparation is flying back and forward? Not ideal, and something that we'll talk about in James O'Connor very shortly. Look, one game is better than no games. I think that World Rugby and rugby fans and clubs alike would all benefit from clarification around Reg 9 and doing away with the moral contract or any perceived do-gooderism that needs to be shared between player and club. If there is a clear international window and you're an international player, you play international rugby. That, in my opinion, is the clearest and most obvious way to delineate the two. I'm sure that there is more nuance to that debate. Frankly, I'm not sure I want to add it with my gold cap on, but I think that World Rugby ultimately benefits from the best players playing international rugby over club rugby when they clash.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's good. You put it succinctly, and we're going to leave that one there. What we're not going to leave them, what we're going to pick up is James O'Connor, as you mentioned, him being flown back and forth across the world, whether it was done on the stub and by the dollars of RA or not. I understand there's nuance, but I also think to this argument, but I also think that if you're going to put things bluntly, it's really, really weird to see him fly back and forth like this in a week, especially when we know that someone like Tom Liner is quite fragile. And I was really, really reticent to use a word like fragile, at the start of the season when he copped a couple of concussions, etc. But now it's a hamstring that's again from last year hampering him a little bit. A couple of more concussions, one more concussion, possibly he's out for another couple of months. It's just getting to the point where you have a playmaker like that at such a young age with the season that he's had with injury. Surely you just keep someone like James O'Connor in camp, solidified there, based in the time zone, especially when someone like Ben Donaldson, who's your oldest, most experienced fly half behind James O'Connor, is still not 100% health-wise and is just coming back from an adductor strain.
Yeah, I personally can't see why James O'Connor wasn't kept. There's probably things that we don't know and things that won't be revealed to us down in the cheap seats, but it's strange. It's a strange scenario. I think the outcome is preferable that we have him rather than we don't. I think going over with Tom Liner's run of injuries and Tane Edmed's inexperience, both of their inexperience, frankly, isn't particularly appealing for ending a 52-game losing streak at Eden Park, or however long that international run goes for. Ours goes back to the 80s for Australians. So I feel better with him being there, but it's a strange scenario. Maybe more will come out in the wash in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll see. And the final thing to wrap up this quick news segment is going to be the return of Folau Fainga'a from France, Clermont, I believe he is, in the French top 14, back to the New South Wales / ACT Brumbies, because that is how many Brumbies players Dan McKellar has brought back into this Waratahs side, the old Brumbies coach himself. It's really, really interesting to see the kind of players that he's pushed out, like the likes of Mahe Vailanu. He's left, he's gone up to Japan. Julian Heaven, he's gone across, I think it's the French top 14, if I'm not mistaken, or is he with Exeter?
I've got a feeling Heaven's ended up in Prem Rugby, but I
Yeah,
couldn't
okay,
say
in
for
Prem
sure
Rugby.
from
So
my head.
maybe in the UK. So maybe it is with Exeter. And then you've got the likes of Ethan Dobbins, Theo Furey there at the Waratahs, and now you've got Folau Fainga'a. And it's particularly with the retirement of Dave Parecki. That's super exciting because Folau Fainga'a was a try-scoring machine for the Western Force and the Brumbies before he left Australian shores. I think he's a great player. I'm just not sure whether maybe as you and I mentioned in the pre-chat, he needed to be brought back on RA top up because he's an expensive bloke now, having played in France, where the front row is very much bread and butter stuff for the teams up there. But nonetheless, him on a RA top up feels like a lot of resources to put behind a hooker, which would presumably come in a third string or fourth string.
It's funny, when we were talking about in the pre-show, John, I was more inclined to agree and say, yeah, four hookers and you're giving them top ups or giving this one a top up seems strange. But then I think straight back to 2023 South Africa World Cup, and they were down for eight, packing down for 78 minutes of a World Cup final, and you're down to your third and your fourth stringers, and you need them to be quality, right? So, what a key role in your rugby puzzle. And I think that we need to have full investment in front row as much as we can. It's probably been something that we've left behind historically as Australians, investing in, outside backs or, wanting to keep our fetchers around and those pretty boys. But really, you don't win without that platform. So I think it's a good signing. I don't know how much money, numbers have been thrown around, some fairly high, but I think that having an experienced test hooker coming back into the fold to replace Dave Parecki, invaluable.
Yep, we'll wait and see how he goes in Super Rugby Pacific 2026 season. I can't wait. So we're going to get into that and it's going to be great. But let's now get into Bledisloe number 1. So we're going to start off with the Wallabies team sheet, and I'm going to whip it up straight up here for you guys. It is unbelievable. We get another shot at breaking the Eden Park hoodoo. It frightens me to death, but it also fills me with great excitement. Before we head straight into the team, give me a little sense of where your mentality is for this Wallabies side, because for me, I am feeling that a lot of people have been putting a lot of pressure on the All Blacks, being like, it's their title to lose. They're coming off a massive loss. It's they really need to win this. All pressure on them. The Wallabies can just play. And fundamentally, if the Wallabies want to win the Bledisloe, if the Wallabies want to have a shot at the Rugby Championship, and if they want to right the wrong of losing in Sydney in quite a poor fashion in the end, if you go think about it retrospectively, the Wallabies have a lot to prove to us as well. They have proved that they have proved that we as a public should expect something from them. And frankly, if you're going to go to Eden Park, you have to express and expect a little bit more. So I think that the Wallabies can't go into this thinking that they are, hands-free, they're free to play however they want. I think they have to go to Eden Park and say, like, you know what? If we want any chance of winning anything anywhere, we have to win this match. It's not a we can go out there and play however we want. How are you seeing this mentality and this mental battle shaping up for Eden Park?
Well, you need to be hungry, right, Fergo? No one's been able to do this since the French in 94. It's one of the great sporting hooters in the world, not just rugby. I think that you need that hunger because ultimately this is a Wallaby side that has only won one trophy, and that's the Vale Bowl. We lost the Lions series, we didn't win back the Mandela Plate, and we didn't win back the Puma Trophy. So I would say that despite everyone's protestations, we've underperformed and could rightly be 0-4 in the Rugby Championship were it not for a great finish against the RGs and that second half in Johannesburg. So you flip the script, and we're looking at a really, really terrible season. I think you need this for this year, not just for the Hoodoo's sake. You need this to show that this team is worth the support that it's currently earning because it's earned weekly. There's so much goodwill around Australian rugby, but it is earned weekly. It will dissolve if the Australians don't put in a performance worthy of its fans. So I am hungry. I am filled with trepidation about the game and about some of the selections in particular, but it's always exciting. I mean, every chance you get, like you mentioned, to crack the Bled curse is a wonderful week in rugby.
Oh, mate, I cannot wait. So let's just get straight into the team because the team has been announced and it's an exciting looking team. Looking at all the forums that I can, there is so much support for this team and probably the fewest amount of bickering or disappointments or looking at why would you pick that player there? Honestly, I think overall there's been a lot of support and love for this team that Joe Schmidt and his coaching staff have picked. So I think the thing to look at here, and we're not going to go through it player by player. Lucan gets his first start alongside Nick Frost, who is out and out our best second rower. That is a bigger, taller, more experienced second row that we've fielded for quite some time. Because as we know, Lucan Salakaia-Loto is the most experienced test second rower that we have. And it fills me with great joy that we have such a big body like Lucan in the second row in the absence of Rob Valentini. So, Tom Hooper goes there to 6. But overall, that pack has experience, size, and they have a fair bit of chemistry put together throughout themselves during Joe Schmidt's tenure.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned experience, and obviously James Slipper's 149 going into 150 bumps the overall ledger, but 6 of that starting at have over 30, and that's really important. If you're including
Awesome.
Harry Wilson, who plays 30th test, I think that core is really key. And you mentioned Salakaia-Loto, 42 tests, Frost 32 tests. There's a good core there, and I like that people are supported as well. To me, it looks like a really good set piece pack as well, particularly around line out. The fact that you have 3 genuine tools to hit fills me with a lot more confidence than heaping everything onto Nick Frost. Plus, we know that Harry Wilson's been used as a line out target as well. So gives you great variation there. It means that it's not all just Frosty and they go just double team him with a Tupou Vai and a Fabian Holland, which they want to do, plus the 2 Pilotus. So really excited to see how that pack goes. But equally, I like the experience that they've been able to put in the back line to try and jig around what was a massive loss of Andrew Kellaway.
Yeah, you're right, and I think we go straight to the back because we're not. It doesn't make sense to start anywhere else. Max Jorgensen gets his first start at 15 for the Wallabies. He was actually not even born the last time we held the Bledisloe Cup. So there's a stat for you. Take that into the week, and Max Jorgensen, I hope you do something that hasn't been done since before your time, which is hoist the Bledisloe. But part 1 starts this weekend. He's partnered with Harry Potter and Corey Toole in the back 3. Really quick, really lightning, exciting players. Harry Potter, he didn't wow me with his aerial game during his stint for the Wallabies against the Lions, but nor was it terrible. And we know he has great top end speed. And Corey Toole, obviously, this back 3 worries me from an aerial game. It really does. And Max Jorgensen, it's not that he's bad in the air. It's just that all of a sudden he's going to have positioning as a huge part of the way that he plays the game. And to be honest, I can't say that I remember him playing particularly well at fullback from a positional aspect in Super Rugby when I've seen him play there for the Waratahs. So that worries me. Back 3, is there anything there that you want to add on that? Because that is the single greatest. Defense is fine. They can all tackle. It's probably the better defending back 3 that I've seen in a little while. But aerially, it worries me.
Definitely aerially. I'm still worried in defense as so far as it's just like Corey Toole, amazing with ball, but still defensively, it's going to plague him until he proves us wrong, right? Until he's sticking every tackle. And he has had some good defensive performances, but 3 tests and you're thrown into the Bledisloe Cauldron and Eden Park. I think it's the inexperience that just nibbles at me a little bit, Fergo. I know that there's cover there sort of on the bench with Felipe Dalguna, who has 13 tests, so more than Toole and Potter put together. But, I guess, how do you replace a Tom Wright and Andrew Kellaway and their 80-odd combined tests? They're big shoes to fill, and what an opportunity for Toole and Potts.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. And what's really beneficial for, I think, mostly Corey Toole is that he's beaten the Blues at Eden Park this year. He knows that ground. He has been part of a Brumbies core, which a lot of Brumbies in this side know how to go about beating a New Zealand-based side in Auckland. So that is a feather in his cap. So he's not going to be necessarily be threatened or intimidated by the four posts and also the sideline flags of Eden Park. So that's good for him. Then we have to go to Tate McDermott getting his start in the 9 jersey alongside James O'Connor. Great to have that cohesion. Great to have that continuity, as in they've played at the Queensland Reds together. And it's also really reassuring because they are both experienced players. As you've noted, what worries me about this combo is that neither of them are the best nor the biggest kickers. And territory, I don't care if it is an early start at Eden Park, it's going to be dewy. It's going to be an important facet of the game, and it worries me greatly.
Yeah, no noted kickers in that starting back line. Jorgensen, again, he can hoof him. Suaalii can hoof him. I fear they may not feel. Not fear rather. I feel that they could use Lenny Hitaz left a little
I hope
more if
so.
they're careful on exits because it's a big boot as well. It's criminally
Mm,
underutilized in my opinion.
totally.
But I align with you there, Fergo. I think it's more pop gun than cannon as far as the boot's concerned, and maybe it lends itself to some of the picks on the bench too.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the last thing, Lenny Guitar, Joseph Kusasuili linked back up for something like
Love
their
that.
11th test together. They're stable. They're pretty stable as far as our centers go. What I did like from Hunter Paisami to Lenny Guitar was that both of them in their last 2 games, respectively, that they played, managed to get through contact and pop offloads to Suaalii. And Suaalii is such a powerful runner coming through that if he collects the ball, he's often making a line break, if not at least a couple of good, decent post-contact meters. So that's gelling. It's starting to gel, and I like that. And Suaalii and Potter have played together in the 13 slash winger position as well. So now a couple of games. So it's nice to see. On the bench, Brandon Pangamosa comes in, good scrummaging prowess there. Angus Bell, obviously, for his great impact running off the bench. And Alan Alatoa makes his return. I tell you what, I could not have seen a world where not having Alan Alatoa in the side would have not got us in the foot. But geez, it feels so good to see him back in the side. His scrummaging, and if we can put the New Zealand set piece under pressure like the Box did, not saying that we are of the same quality, but that'll be really exciting because that reserve front row, beast.
Yeah, it's gun, isn't it? And I think as much as we're impressed by Zane Nonga, by Tom Robertson, by the impact they were able to have in Triple A's absence, what an asset to have back. Wallaby captain, 80 plus test. You bring him in with Belly and BPA. That is a hefty front row that would run it just as hard as our starters. So really excited about that. I'll actually love the balance what we get from the bench as well, plus familiar faces there in Williams and Tizano. How do you feel about the makeup of those 5?
Yeah, no, really good. I was wondering where they might go 6-2, just because I know that the All Blacks have picked quite a hefty pack. And I was wondering if Joe Schmidt was kind of tempted to be able to, particularly if it does get a little bit wet and they have to go to ground and pound and they're going to have to really get confrontational there. But I think Jeremy Williams and Carlo Tizano are the right 2 players. The only thing, if it went 6-2, it might be Nick Champion de Crepney, who we know had a really good season against the Kiwi players. But Ryan Lonergan finally gets his debut
Hey,
opportunity. Not gonna lie, I did not think it was going to be in the TRC after he missed the Argentina window, but here we are. Thank God, because guess what? He has the best kicking game, the best passing game out of him and Tate McDermott. And if there's someone who has a cool head, who's a mature player, who's played a lot of Super Rugby games, and has again also beaten Blues at Eden Park this year, it's Ryan Lonergan.
and someone who can hit him. He can hit him off the tee, sweet as you like. So what an asset. And we don't want him to be, in that position on debut where you have to pot him, but He is so cool. Fergo, he's been around Wallaby Camp since 2021. He has done the apprenticeship and some. He's got a couple of certs and a diploma too. He's been there for ages, and I'm so stoked. I hope he gets his opportunity. I just think his performances through every level of Australian rugby, through the pathways, through NRC when that was around, even what he's done in an Australia A jersey as captain for the past few years and few tours when that was more active. He has done it all and performed to an excellent level. So I have only the best and hope only the best for Ryan Lonergan in a Wallaby jersey. Congratulations.
Yeah, so do I, and I can't wait. It's time now to get to the All Black side that we're going to be playing. So, Lockie, on one side, we have the Wallaby side, which you and I are very, very happy with, and I think a lot of Australians are as well. But we have a side on the opposite side of the field, and that is the All Blacks. And I tell you what, this side scares me because there is so much grunt, so much power, and so much explosivity in the side. I'll whack the side up here for all you guys to enjoy and have a look at. They welcome back the likes of Cody Taylor. Fabian Holland steps in for injured Scott Robertson. Scott Barrett, who's gone down with a shoulder injury. And they have also brought back Cam Roigard from injury straight back into 9. Caleb Clark makes a return on one wing. That means Leroy Carter switches over to the other, and D-Max slots back in the 23 jersey for Will Jordan into the 15 jersey. They've retained Billy Proctor and Geordie Barrett in the centres with Bowden at 10, and Tyra Lomax gets promoted to the front row from the starting position. It is a shit load of grunt in that side.
Yeah, it's a hell of a pack. That's the thing that really caught my eye. Having De Gruyter, Taylor back is such a huge in, and I know that Barrett's out, and he does so much grunt work for them. But Holland is an 80+ minute lock. He's incredible.
Yep.
Tupou Vai has been a thorn in many Australian sides across his 40+ tests. And yeah, if you haven't been watching much of Satiti and Parker, my God, they've got motors like Artie as well. So it's a really hard-working, uncompromising pack that they've put forward. I really like the look of it. I'm honestly so upset from an Australian perspective. Love it from a rugby perspective, but so upset to see Roigard and Ratimer back in the action. They're both so good despite their relative inexperience at test level, and massive ins to have those game drivers back in the mix, Fergo.
Yeah, it's crazy. What an absolute embarrassment of riches they do have. The depth that they have is enviable. Even when they were down to their third and fourth string halfbacks, they were playing absolutely well and absolutely ridiculously well. And it wasn't because of them that the Eden Park, that they got smashed in Wellington. So it's awesome for them to have that kind of depth, and really well done to the New Zealand rugby pathways to be able to bring it through that kind of talent and keep them sustained there. Peter Larkai gets his opportunity in the 20 jersey off the bench, and Patrick Tuipulotu makes a return from the cranial fracture from what he sustained in Argentina. The stitches and the work on that looked pretty nasty, but now he's back playing rugby, and he is a big behemoth of a man. He absolutely pulled the Blues through some dark times through this season, as well as Bowden Barrett, and I expect those two to have a really big impact on the game. What I see in this side is that Caleb Clark is better aerially than some of the other exponents on the wing for the All Blacks. I can see Cam Roigard extremely good around the fringes. We know that. Unfortunately, he's done it so many times against the Super Rugby sides for Australia. For the Hurricanes is the club that he plays for. But what worries me the most is that Cam Roigard's ability to sniff around the edges is only going to highlight how many times we are going to get beaten in that area, because that is part of the ruck that, although we cede lots of territory, or what people would describe our defense as being passive and cede meterage out wide, it is really around the ruck where Argentina and other teams have been able to punch through and find good meterage. So it worries me when they bring in a weapon like Roigard here.
It's a like for like with McDermott, right? You know, they're both really hard running nines who love sniffing space, who can beat a front row one-on-one with ease and exploit any lapse of concentration. So much of Roygaard's game will be based on not how he plays or performs, but the discipline of Australia's pillar forwards. So it's a huge warning sign, right? You know, Roygaard sniffing around, same with Radhamar. You need to be locked in. If you're defending closest into the ruck, you are dialed on him until he is past the ball and some. Massive, massive target going to be on his back. So too on Clark. I'm glad that you mentioned his aerial game because he is elite in that area. I think those were his sort of breakout games in 2020, 2021, where you see him terrorize Australia in the air and get up high. A massive job for Harry Potter to try and shut him down. So super excited for that as well. And look, any team with Will Jordan in his best position, which is fullback, is terrifying. So I have the usual trepidation that I mentioned off the top about this All Blacks time, but I still think that there are areas to exploit. I think the new combinations between sort of 13 and 14 and wing and 13 when they're swapping across sides, I think there's an opportunity to exploit that. While Billy Proctor is a very good talent, still doesn't have those existing combinations with Clark and with Carter. So there's space. If Suaalii can work him over, I wouldn't be too surprised to find channels inside and out.
Yeah, the backline battle is definitely going to be very interesting, particularly in the air, as both of you and I have mentioned. Up front, though, Tyrell Lomax is taking a while to come back to his true form after the injury. And I just wonder whether Australia are going to be able to find him still needing to find that extra 10% to be back at his best. So at set piece time, I expect absolutely James Slipper to go to work on Tyrell Lomax. James Slipper has been scrummaging brilliantly all year, whether it's for club or country. And so we hope for an Australian perspective that that's where it's going to continue. And I think that's where New Zealanders may find a little bit of concern, because on the other side of the scrum, Ethan Groot very much has played himself back into the All Blacks because of his scrummaging prowess. So Taylor Tupou is going to have his hands full there on the tight head side for the Wallabies, on the loose head side for the All Blacks. The combination of Fabian Holland and Tupou, very raw combination, not a lot of time together. Both have huge engines. Simon Parker, very new to the test stage, although he looks like a duck to water. Really, he's been killing it. But what I will say is that despite Cody Taylor being back, great asset to have, quite good load of the ground, and Ardie Savea obviously very good at the pilfer, as well as Tupou Vaa'i, I do feel like they still lack that genuine lock-in number 7 kind of character that's going to be doing that all game, because we know that Ardie Savea is such an all-round player. And I just think that for someone like the Wallabies with Fraser McReight, he is very much pilfer at the moment. That's been his go-to move, whereas we haven't seen as much of his running game. Much like Ardie Savea, we've been seeing a lot of his running game, and not that he hasn't been pilfering, but I just see that this pack for the All Blacks is going to bash breakdowns, and they're really going to make it hell for whether it's the Wallabies ball and they're attacking it and they want to secure their ruck, they're going to get smacked in the face. If it's the All Blacks ball, have fun trying to get over that, because you're going to have Simon Parker, Fabian Holland, Tupou Vaa'i, rocket missiling straight into you, trying to clear you out, and they don't want you anywhere near their ball. So that is going to that battle there is going to dictate how effective Cam Roygaard is in his comeback appearance.
Yeah, I agree. It's a funny one with Lackeye because he covers sort of 6, 7, 8 really well, and more versatility than having Carriffy in there, even though Carriffy's had some wonderful games in that Black 7 and obviously with the Canes. So I like the stylistic change. The All Blacks are going, look, I don't think we need an out-and-out fetcher. We've got enough there with Ardie's ability to get over the ball, and we back our backs to do it in a pilfering situation out wide. We've seen what Asaf can do over the pill. He had defended the fortress once already this year against South Africa. He's happy to do it again. So a wonderful ruck battle there, and that discipline, how that's refereed, is going to be fascinating. Whether there's really strict regulations around off feed at the breakdown, killing contests by having that supporting player getting straight over the ball, how the first 10 minutes play out there, it sounds cliche, but it will set the tone for how both sides attack that breakdown and how much they can get away with. So you're right, this is a brutal side, but it's built for, this screams like a classic dark arts All Black side.
And we're back, and I'm so sorry because I thought the Argentinian times were out and recording at 6 p.m. on Australian Eastern Standard Time, but they are not. Even though the South African side is out, I don't want to review it without being able to review both sides for the video. So unfortunately, we're going to have to skip over those guys in this video, and we are going to go straight to the Women's World Cup grand final between England and Canada. Yes, applause, cheer, go for your life, because this tournament has been everything and more. A huge success in England. Well done to the hosts. And you know what? They fundamentally deserve to be there, and the Canadians do too, because they have both played some stellar rugby. Lockie, give me, we don't have teams yet, but give me what you're feeling in this contest, because for me, it is the flair and absolute eliteness of the English back three mixed with the absolute brutality of their scrummaging prowess and set piece work against the offloading, free flowing, and brave Canadian team in their style. That's how I'm seeing this contest. What are you seeing in this contest?
I'm so excited. I know it's Bledisloe week. I know there are massive ramifications in the TRC, but I'm almost as excited for this World Cup final, even though I don't have a horse in the race, because it's a clear 1v2, both deserving teams, and I think they're so well matched together. I actually think that their strengths are the same. They play with incredible speed around the ruck, particularly the Canadians. Their forward packs, particularly their front rows, are dominant carriers, but they're also so powerful over the ball and on the other side pushing up. You mentioned the back three of England, Ellie Kildun, Abby Dow, Claudia McDonald, Meg Jones out wide. God, they've got weapons everywhere. But the Canadians are just as powerful. Julia Shell, Alicia Corrigan, Asia Hogan, Rochester. Their center pairing is incredible of Tessier and Simmons, and I cannot wait to see these two go at it. I'm gonna have a really hard time picking. I think maybe that's something we get to a bit later on, but they are so evenly balanced, and I think we're in for one of the great Rugby World Cup games, period.
No, absolutely. And I think just on that, I don't think there is a better rugby player at the moment, men or women's, than Sophie De Goody of Canada. For a
Mm.
second rower, the way that she can move, the way that she understands the game, her raw technique, as well as her offloading ability, it is unbelievable that someone of that size can move the way that she does. And I'd also like to follow that up closely by Butterman. I believe it's Butterman, prop for England. Her power and her grit, as well as her ability to move in the loose, it's like Tania Latupo High School Reels 2.0. It is cooked that she's doing that the test level just for fun.
Yeah, Hannah Bottomman rather, with like just the butteriest hands to put Kildun away down the left edge in that semi-final. It was an awesome play. To see, tight five props linking wide, quick through the hands. Ball always beats feet. That's what you're taught from a junior age. And when you've got props that are putting it on a dish like that, it's just awesome. But she kept England in that game. Bottomman, three pilfers in the first half against England. She was just against France rather. She was just awesome. And you mentioned De Goody. I mean, find yourself a more complete player in world rugby. Kicks
Mm.
goals, pilfers, jumps in the line out, steals mauls, intercept runaways in the 78th minute of a semi. Like she's just awesome. So we're going to see an incredible showcase of rugby, and two very different ends of the spectrum, right? England is the best funded program in women's rugby, full stop. And Canada, like their men's, they are underfunded. They're running off an oily rag and crowdfund their way across. They're not completely separated from the men's. It's not a case of haves and have nots. There's just no resource over there. So what
Mm.
they've done, off barely a whisker, is incredible. And I think it's a wonderful blueprint to look at for how you can maximize your resource, particularly in the context of Australian
Mm.
women's rugby. Amazing crossover with their 15s and all their stars. It kind of makes you think, the what ifs, for all the talent that we have in that field as well, and it's being applied
Mm.
so effectively in that Canadian
Mm.
team.
No, massive shout out to what they've done with the little that they have, and also massive congratulations to the coaching environment and the sports administrators for their alignment protocols, which makes their sevens program such heavily embedded in their 15s and for men's and women's. And it's just they've reaped the fruits of their labor there and their smarts. Really, it's what you have to do when you got limited resources. So well done to them. Now we'll go straight into predictions, and we're going to start throughout the whole rugby championship, and then we're going to go into the Women's World Cup final. So for the Wallabies taking on the All Blacks at Eden Park, Lockie, drum roll, give me your predictions, please, sir.
I am just about ready to be heard again, Virgo. I'm just about ready to be heard again. I think it's going to be a classic, and while I think we're so close as an Australian unit, I'm not sure we're there yet. I want to be proven wrong, so I'm going to put it out there and say the All Blacks will still win this game by single digits. I just the feeling, the bounce back, the pressure that they are under after that South African game. We've seen it too many times, and I don't think this will set the tone for the rest of the year for Australia. I think they can bounce back a week later, but I think this one's going the AB's way, Fergo.
Yep, and I think that is what history would suggest. I had Jamie Wall, rugby journalist, on earlier in the week, and he said betting for Eden Park is the safest bet you can make in rugby because it hasn't happened any other way. But the All Blacks win in 30 years or so. So it's absolutely insane. But he said one day I will be wrong. And I wrote a piece earlier this week, which I'll put up here and I'll link in the description below. Is that Australia need to continue their self-belief, but now they need to evolve it. They believe that they can win from behind, that they can beat anyone, anywhere, but they need to punch the All Blacks in the mouth and get rid of the younger brother complex because they can't go into this contest believing that they're not at the same level as the All Blacks because the occasion's just going to get too big. And I think that should they be able to reverse the likes of their point scoring norms. So they've only scored around 10 points in every single game first half of the TRC. And then they've scored their big points in the back half. And then the All Blacks have only scored 3 points in the 40th to the 60th minute for the whole TRC. So if the Wallabies can keep that pressure after the halftime whistle, but head into halftime with a decent score. So I'm talking about, 3-5 points in it, the Wallabies have a serious chance, but it's going to come down to how many points they score because we know the All Blacks score a lot of points in the first half. And I'm going to say the Wallabies by 3.
Oh, huge. I love it. I hope you're right. I hope you're right so badly. It adds so much to the Southern Hemisphere rugby narrative. It re-sparks the Trans-Tasman rivalry, even without a guaranteed Bledisloe Cup, right? Because you're still going to go and win it in Perth, but to break that hoodoo in of itself would be an incredible thing. I hope you're right. I'm just on the other side of that coin.
The odds are against us. We are without Rob Valentini, without Will Skelton, without Tom Ryan, without Andrew Kellaway. It is not where you want to be necessarily, but this team has proved, and I think the public now understand that the team has galvanized about a core belief. And I just think that if they can push that a little bit further, there is nothing that this side doesn't have that they can't trouble the likes of the All Blacks, who they themselves have not had the most linear year. It's got nothing to do with only the Wallabies. It's the fact that the All Blacks have not been playing their absolute best this year so far. So we'll have to wait and see. But I do think the Wallabies can do it, even though that fills me with great dread saying that now on tape. Heading over into the RGs and the Springboks, we haven't seen the sides. This game is obviously at Kings Park in Durban, Sharks territory in South Africa. We've seen the Springbok side. It is very much a big side with the likes of Eben Etzebeth, Ruan Nortje, Oxen Che. It has got the stars, the glam, the glitz, along with Sasha Feinberg and Gil Mazulu at number 10. I do think that this one, because the Pumas have been over there for such a long time, straight after leaving Australia, they went straight to South Africa instead of going home for that fellow week. I think that this game is going to be really, really tight. And I'm going to say the Springboks by 5.
Yeah, I'm picking a tight game too. The amount of time and investment Argentina have put into this game is huge, right? Because they don't get their home game. The next week we'll go to Twickenham and
Exactly. Same
Allianz
time zone, but
Allianz
different.
Stadium.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's a massive call, massive moneymaker, obviously, to take that game across to them, but
Mm.
not sacrificing your final game and a potential TRC decider is huge. So this will be seen as a must win for the RGs as well. I think it's got all the makings of a brutal, physical, penalty goal driven affair. So yeah, I'm going to say South Africa by 7 in this one.
Like I said, the Argentinians, I know that they're welcoming back Thomas Albanese, whether he gets selected or not. They also have the likes of Santiago Carreras to call upon if they would like, but it just depends whether whoever's pack is able to beat the other one to a pole more to be able to deliver good ball to the likes of Thomas Albanese and Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu. It's going to be extremely, or whether it's Santiago Carreras at the number 10 again, it's going to be extremely exciting contest. And to wrap it all up, Lockie, tell me, who is going to win, Canada or the hosts England of the 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup? It has been a stellar tournament, and I'm so happy that you and I have both got opportunities to cover it in our own little ways. For me here on the platform, talking to some of the Wallabies players, awesome contest. But as all good things, they must come to an end, and they come to an head this weekend. I am going to go with the hosts England by
And that, ooh,
by 10.
by 10, I love that because I didn't know who to go for, and now I can go for the other team to make it interesting. I can't split them. I think England deserve it. God, they deserve it after going down in the final after their unbeaten streak against New Zealand those years ago. No team is more deserving. No team has done more to elevate the women's game than England. But we love an underdog. Canada have such a unique style of play, and I think that they're going to get it done by 3 in extra time.
Extra time win, 3 points. That is one for the history books. Either way, it's going to be one for the history books because you know what? It's not going to be New Zealand to host it, who have just been Blackbirds have been crazily successful in the women's space. It was a tremendous quarterfinal effort through all the teams, semi-finals. It was all awesome, and now it's culminated in the final, which I feel everyone deserves, especially England as the home nations, as you said. But thank you everyone here who's gotten to this point of the podcast. Please, and the podcast, the video, whatever, where you've been joining us from, please like and subscribe here on the channel. It does me a huge good, and also across on Scrumbags, where you'll find Lockie week to week with his band of rugby hooligans. And for all of you out there, enjoy your rugby. It is a stellar weekend of Women's Rugby World Cup Grand Final, and you've got the excitement of the TRC as well. So until then, enjoy your rugby, and we'll catch you for a review of TRC Round 5.